The Gospel of Gold by G.S. Lewis. Chapter 2 Gold. Middle school had just let out for the summer, and as his bus pulled away, the boy pushed open the front door to his house. He was greeted by the sight of a cyndaquil-shaped cake on the kitchen table, and his father, seated and grinning, with an open letter in his hand. The man immediately started lighting the candles, arranged in the pattern of Cyndaquil's fiery back, while his son watched with bemusement. Thanks, Dad, but my birthday's not for another 2 days." His father, still glowing with joy, paused lighting long enough to point to the letter on the table. "Go on, kiddo," he said. "Read it out loud while I finish this. Then you'll see." The boy tugged his backpack off his shoulders and set it down on the nearest chair, then lifted the piece of paper lying on top of a torn envelope. It was marked with the official L for League logo, and his heartbeat increased as he realized what it was. He read, "We are pleased to inform you that your son," here the boy read his own name, "has qualified as one of Ecruteak City's 3 representative trainers in this year's Pokemon League tournament. After due consideration of his application essay, school transcripts, and letters of recommendation, we have determined that your child will have 3rd pick priority for starter Pokemon acquisition. Boarding for the new Barktown shuttle will take place—" "All right, you don't have to read the whole thing," his father interrupted, clapping him heartily on the shoulder. "The rest of it just keeps going, and by the time you finish, these candles will have melted into the cake. The point is, you've been accepted! It took a few times, but my son is officially a Pokemon League trainer!" The boy smiled as he watched his father's face practically glow with fierce pride. Every year since his 10th birthday, they had sat together and filled up paperwork, applying for the Johto Journey sponsorship. This was clearly a dream come true for his father, as League Trainer was a mark of prestige upon the family name. As for himself... Go on! Make a wish and blow out the candles. You have last pick, but maybe if you wish for it now, you'll get Cyndaquil anyway." The boy looked at the candles on the cake. 13 candles. In more ways than one, he was taking his first true steps into adulthood. But what was he to wish for? Certainly, he could wish for success as a licensed trainer, but the boy was surprised to discover how little that actually meant to him in his heart of hearts. The root of his Pokemon trainer's drive was in pleasing his father, and what child didn't crave the approval of his parents? "I wish..." The boy waited a moment longer, vaguely hoping that something truly worthy of his annual wish was forthcoming. The moment passed without epiphany. He blew out the candles anyway. He had trouble sleeping that night, as might be expected for any young trainer about to embark on a once-in-a-lifetime spirit quest. By the time the Ecruteak crowds were gathered on the following morning, his mind was foggy and his eyes drooping. He watched as the parents of the other 2 trainers fussed about them, rechecking their backpacks, smoothing their hair, and making them promise to call home regularly. His own father attended to him with similar vigor, giving last-minute tidbits of advice like drink enough water and find a walking stick early on. Now that they were in their last few minutes together, his concern had shifted away from his son being a successful Pokemon trainer and lingered almost entirely on his well-being along the way. As the transport van came into sight, the man pressed a wad of bills into his son's hand and held him tightly. The boy looked down at the money, and his eyes widened in surprise at the amount. Dad, this is far too much! My allowance never went this high!" "It's yours," After all the work you've put in, you've earned it." His father rested his hands on the boy's shoulders. "And you'll need it. With the sorry financial state the league's in these days, they'll have doubled the cost of Pokemon Center care since last month. The days of sponsorship grants for that kind of service are over. Keep it safe, son." The shuttle van to New Barktown had now pulled up to the sidewalk, and the crowding throngs shouted their hearty goodbyes as custom went. Amid the farewells, father and son embraced each other one more time, knowing it would be their last in a while. "I love you," the man said thickly. "More than you know. And no matter how your journey turns out, know that I am very, very proud of you." "Thanks, Dad. I'll do you proud," the boy replied, swallowing the lump in his throat. They parted, and he turned and climbed into the van. The other two trainers followed suit, and they rolled away as their loved ones still waved from behind. Once Ecruteak City had vanished through the tree line, the van driver spoke up in a friendly manner, introducing himself as Charles. He asked them their names, what starter Pokemon they planned to get, and what they hoped their Johto Journey would achieve. Nobody had a substantive answer for the latter question, but they all agreed that they wanted different starters. The boy was pleasantly surprised to know that the young lady, Marina, wanted Totodile, while the young man, Jinichi, desired Chikorita. It seemed a lucky break that he would get Cyndaquil after all, in spite of having last pick. The van driver seemed surprised too. "I'm glad you kids are all getting what you want," he said cheerfully, flicking on the windshield wipers as drops of rain began pattering down. "It's too bad about the weather you gotta start in, but you're still getting off on a much better foot than most kids I haul." "You drive all the other trainers to New Barktown?" asked Marina in awe. "Yep. Well, candidates from all the cities on this side of the sea, anyway." The driver laughed. "Everyone starts a day apart, and I got to Mahogany Town tomorrow. Whew, boy, was that a long drive last year. All three kids wanted Totodile, and they was bickering and complaining right up to the moment I pulled in the lot at Elm's lab. Sadly, it's the same story for most starting trainers I get. It's gotten worse every year, and it's gotten way worse when the league quit paying for their own trainers' Pokécenter care. Everyone's so selfish these days, and their Pokémon pay the price." He turned his head for just a moment and gave them a wink. "Except for Ecruteak City. You folks still put out decent trainers, and I ain't just saying that." The trio thanked him, and the driver nodded. "I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, but I'll not talk your ears off. It's a long drive ahead, and you may want to rest up for what comes after." The boy gratefully took his driver's wisdom to heart. Clearly, this man had been doing this for a while, and he seemed to know how common it was for trainers to lose sleep on the night before their journey. He rested his head against the window pane, and soon drifted off to the gentle patter of the rain. A great tower of flames appeared before him, burning so intensely that the light obscured all of his surroundings. The boy raised his arms to his face by instinct, but lowered them when he felt no tremendous heat from the blaze. In truth, the warmth was pleasant and inviting, and even the overwhelming light did nothing to actually hurt his eyes. He stared for a moment at the fiery tower, wondering what it was, and how it was not consumed. "Gold! Gold!" A quiet but strong feminine voice issued from within the inferno. The boy listened, and it came again, as if it was calling out to him. With a little hesitation, he cautiously approached the tower of flames and passed through the threshold. "Where are you?" he called back. "Who are you?" The blaze diminished from overhead, and a massive, luminous bird swept into view. It radiated gentle but incredible energy, the purest aura of life force that the boy had ever felt. If he was dreaming, and he had to be dreaming, this was more lucid than any waking experience he had yet lived through. He fell on his face at once before the great bird, all the strength in his body gone from him. Then she spoke.
"Rise, son of man. Do not be afraid."
The boy did as she bade, and lifted his head timidly to look upon the creature. She was primarily red and white in coloration, and yet in her outspread wings glimmered all the colors of the rainbow. Her eyes were fierce as they met his own, yet beneath the exterior countenance was a subtle spark of joy and a love for all things living. The boy felt an intense awareness of her utter purity, and how imperfect he was by contrast. She was a thing of absolute divine beauty, an entity from another world. "Are you?" he whispered, his voice small in his own ears. "Are you God?"
"A servant,"
she replied, in a voice that rang with music.
"I am the Phoenix, Ho-oh, life-giver to the beasts who race across the land."
There was a burst of light as she gave a great flap of her wings, and the wind that followed seemed to him like a breath of life.
"And who are you?"
the phoenix asked, descending slowly to his level.
"Son of man, wishmaker, what do you wish? For it is not your name, but what you wish that shapes who you are and who you become."
I wish, the boy stammered. He looked into the fire and recalled the 13 little flames on the top of his cake. I want to be the world's greatest Pokemon trainer. He felt the hollowness of the words even as they left his mouth, and knew them to be false. The phoenix disappeared into the blaze behind her, but her voice still echoed musically in his ears.
"You would do the will of your father. It is an honorable wish, but not one that is truly yours at heart."
A full-length mirror rose up from the boy's feet, and he looked into it to see not his own reflection, but his father. "All my life, Dad's wanted me to become a Pokemon trainer," he thought, as he gazed at the image. "He believed it was best for me, because that's how the world looks at it. But," he looked down at his hands, torn. "The Phoenix is asking me what I want, what I truly want, and that's not it. What then? How can I really answer at this age?"